I hope you all have a good Easter, and we'll proceed with apologies then, please.
We have apologies from Councillor Davey. We also have apologies from Heather Sand, Executive Director for Children's Services, and Martin Samuels, Executive Director for Africa and Community Wellbeing.
Councillor Davis is coming. He might be a few minutes late. So. Okay, are there any declarations of interest that Councillor wishes to give? I'm not seeing any, so there are none. And then we move on to item 4, which are the minutes of this committee, which was held on the 5th of March 2024. Is it your wish I sign these as a true and accurate record? All those in favour of that, please show. That is agreed. Thank you very much. Good. We've done announcements. No, we'll go back to 3 now. My loyal deputy is reminding me. Item 3 then. Are there any announcements by any member of the executive? Yes, Councillor Wood.
Leader, I'm delighted to say that at long last we've received official confirmation from the Ministry of Justice to say that the Coroner Service for Lincolnshire has now become the Greater Lincolnshire's Coroner Service. As you know, this has been an ongoing process for the last 3 years, and I would just like to thank all of the officers involved, including the Senior Coroner, Paul Smith, for his patience and everybody else's patience, because it has been a long time. So that's North Lincolnshire, North East Lincolnshire and Lincolnshire all become one Coroner Service.
That's very good. Thank you. I don't know whether you just want to make an announcement, Chief Executive, about Scampton and progress on devolution.
Yes, happy to, Leader. So we understand that the Leader and the Chief Executive from West Lindsey District Council met the Minister to talk about an agreement around progressing with Scampton. It looks like from the early discussions that they will be looking at agreeing a reduced amount of people on the camp over a defined 3-year period, with the development able to coexist alongside it. So those discussions are happening at the moment, and we are looking at sort of summertime for the first cohort of people to arrive.
Thank you. Yeah, what was everything I said? I did answer.
Sorry,
I got me.
And devolution, yes, colleagues, committee will know that obviously it went to full council, and we have subsequently sent a letter to the Secretary of State asking the Secretary of State to consider the consultation and to apply the statutory instruments. We are expecting to hear back again, sort of late spring, early summer, as to whether the statutory instruments are being progressed, with an outline sort of date of establishing the combined authority in October.
Thank you. Okay, well, no more announcements. I'll then move on to item 6. If you're happy with me to change the order of proceedings. So item 6 then is the recognition of the library services, Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just in summary, our current contract with Greenwich Leisure Limited comes to an end in March 2026, and there is no option for further extension of that contract. So we give this paper to you so you can see what procurement or procurement actions are being taken, and to seek approval to progress it. So I'll now hand over to Leanne.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. So the council has a statutory obligation to provide a comprehensive and efficient library service for those who live, work and study in the county. So the current contract with Greenwich Leisure Limited, GLL, commenced in 2016. It followed 2 judicial reviews over the proposed service model and its delivery. So the new contract will be for initial period of 5 years, with the option to extend for a further 5 years. So whilst the current service model save 1.8 million at the point of outsourcing, the re-procurement is likely to deliver minimal savings. But the outsourcing of Lincolnshire Libraries has been seen as a great success by customers, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, and within the council. The DCMS has also signposted other authorities to Lincolnshire to mirror our model in future commissioning. The libraries provide a network of services that provide physical space, knowledgeable staff, and a trusted source of information. Over the past 2 years, libraries have also become a space where local businesses can meet with their customers. They're a single point of access for other services and are a focal point for many members of the public. Within the new contract, we intend to retain the current model with the core libraries and also the hubs. We would also like to strengthen the opportunities within directorates and the network of libraries to support the council's overarching ambitions. The objective of this new contract is to align the council's 4 ambitions while keeping up to date with the trends, connect libraries to their communities, and also increase library use by ensuring flexible use of space to ensure they are responsive to the different needs and requirements, and also maximising a greater commercial potential. The 23-24 library budget stands at under 5.5 million, and it's recommended that a like-for-like service is procured. Due to the increasing rates of inflation, there's likely to be cost implications. However, sufficient time between now and the commencement of the new contract to understand the impact of this. Competitive tendering of the new contract should provide the council with best value and also a competitive offer for its requirements, and will explore opportunities for financial savings through market engagement. The current provider delivers and manages the IT services on behalf of LCC. There's the option to ask bidders to provide a method statement on how they would improve the service through technology and what the cost would be to the council. And it's up to us to accept whether we're free to accept whether we accept this offer or not. It's therefore proposed that the fundamental elements of the current service delivery model and the specification are retained, and that the service, including supporting IT, continues to be contracted out. The intention is to use a competitive procedure with negotiation for the procurement, and this would provide an opportunity for dialogue with potential providers to ensure that the council achieves the best possible commercial arrangements. So whilst a dialogue with the DCMS is also required, there should be no requirement for a public consultation unless there's a substantial change to the service offered to our communities. And the benefits of the negotiated procedure are that it allows for dialogue with bidders within a competitive environment. So it allows for bids to be improved and greater value achieved. I'd like to invite any questions.
Thank you very much, Leanne. Councillor Pepper, I believe you're on the screen, so could you just relay the comments of the scrutiny committee, please?
Yes, thank you. Good morning and good to see you all. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. You look like you're about to go and do some sad duties.
Yes, it won't be too much longer from the Crowland Abbey. Yeah, this item was discussed at Public Protection and Community Scrutiny Committee meeting as an exempt item, I have to say, on the 19th of March. Firstly, as an aside to the contract, related items were brought out and discussed during the debate, such as the maintenance and leases of library buildings, book donations, and also the intention to continue with the annual revenue grant to support the library hubs. But specific to the contract, concerns were raised should the bids come in much higher than the current contract price. It was confirmed that through discussions with each of the potential suppliers, the council would be able to identify the reasons for any significantly higher bids and tailor any elements where it was beyond what the council could do, and also look at the potential to jointly work with another service to bring down some of those costs. However, support was given to the existing libraries model, which had worked well since its inception in 2016, some 8 years ago. The committee emphasised that the relationship with the existing provider was an important factor to consider alongside the costs for the new contract. It was confirmed that as part of the tendering process, the cost and the quality of the submission would both be factors taken into consideration, but there's a need to be mindful that it was public money being spent. But I have to say, Leader, overall, the committee unanimously agreed to support the recommendations to the executive.
Thank you very much. Pepper? thought you were going to be somebody else. All right, take a seat, councillor. Just talk about libraries. Right, okay. Well, obviously, as those of us who've been on the council, it was a very controversial decision 8 years ago to outsource the library service, and subject to about a year's delay and extensive legal challenge. But I have to say, since the contract was awarded, it has been welcome, God. It has been very successful, as far as I can understand, with the current provider. As we've actually, I think that some of us are very confident that this new model would actually be successful. I think the evidence of what has happened over the last 8 years now has proved that is the case. So Nicole has just arrived, so I'll just let her. But I just wanted, in terms of reviewing the performance since the contract was outsourced, there have been quite a few successes, and any thoughts of might have not only stabilised but how it's improved. Perhaps you can start with Councillor Corey, and then we'll move on. Let Nicole.
Yeah, I'll just briefly brief Nicole on where we are in the process. Yeah, I thank Councillor Pepper for his reporting on scrutiny opinion. We are very pleased with how the library service has progressed since the first contract started in 2016. It was a difficult time, but I think the model in Lincolnshire has been very successful. It's been used as an exemplar. When Baroness Sanderson came to Lincolnshire when she was touring the country to see how library services are delivered across the country, and she said that one of her favourite libraries in the whole of the country was actually in Lincoln, and that is a great testament to how our staff and our partners in GLL and our partners in the community hubs have all worked together to deliver that community service. And it's gone beyond borrowing books and music, and it's gone into more of a community cohesion service, and it's greatly valued by those communities that are benefiting from the hubs. Nicole.
Okay, thank you. My apologies if I'm going to.
No, we've moved the agenda, so thanks for coming a little bit early.
No problem. I'll be conscious that I don't want to tread on Leanne's area, because obviously the commercial team are leading the re-procurement, but we're coming up to the 10-year mark. So we're not able to extend this contract any further, despite the level of success that this current operator has had with us. So we do want to re-procure on a like model. Essentially because we think it's a very strong model, and the libraries have continued to perform extraordinarily well in line with the national trends. The areas that we would be looking at potentially, we're going into a negotiated dialogue, which I'll let Leanne talk to you about a little bit more further. But broadly in line with the model that we've got, the areas that we would look to have a more of a negotiated discussion on is the rural service, which has moved from, as you know, Leader, a very kind of non-environmentally friendly, huge, big library vehicles into a much more agile, frequent mobile service, which is able to do in areas a much lighter touch, but with a greater expansion. But then in other areas where those communities rely upon it in combination with a library hub, a more extended kind of model. So that's an area that we want to be able to discuss. We're not being too prescriptive, because we would like to hear what other operators might want to offer us, particularly those who are working in similar geographical and rural areas. So we're hoping that by not being too prescriptive, they will, those people who are likely to apply will sharpen their pencils and be kind of quite creative in the model of operation that they can come with. Again, just to reiterate, the hubs, I think are councillors have really strong associations with our hubs, so we tend to talk to local councillors on almost on a daily basis. So it's a really strong model that we've got. And as Councillor Corey's mentioned, Baroness Sanderson was quoted as saying what a successful model she felt that had been. I think it's a fairly unique situation, but also one to be proud of, that every single hub that we created right from the very beginning is still in existence. So we've not lost any of the hubs, and we still have capacities to bring new ones online. Should a community want to be able to apply. So we continue to work with them. So the hub model is one that we feel, or as an officers we recommend, is not one we feel that we should touch. That needs to remain there, with the technical and expertise support coming from whoever the successful provider would be. And then with regards to the finances, so part of the procurement process is that we are benchmarking. So we're benchmarking what the National Library envelope looks like, and we'll look about what costs it would be to the council if certain things were brought back kind of into the council, brought back internally and in-house. And then we will see tender submissions and negotiations to refine that final envelope of what that service looks like. But I think I'll probably be able to hand over to yourself for any of the more detailed information.
I think, well, the Anne's done her.
Oh, you've done yours. Oh, I do apologise. I missed it.
No, that's all right. But also, thank you. I mean, I think, you know, and although it's been a big success, I think, as always, we need to be fairly agnostic about who is the future delivery, and obviously in-house should not be ruled out, and put it like that. I suppose the two areas I'm particularly interested in is one, as you said, what used to be called the mobile library service. How has that sort of moved on in terms of the constraints of the current contract? And the second point was how have, obviously all the hubs will vary because they're all volunteer run, but just an assessment of how they've moved on, which are probably inform what opportunities there are for the future.
So if I take the latter one first, I think it continues to surprise and delight actually how the hubs and the volunteers respond. So we're almost on the second and third generation of volunteers in some of those hubs, where communities have really embraced them. They're very different, which was the intentional design, because they reflect their local community. And I think whilst the core library purpose remains at the heart, that hasn't limited their aspirations in what they offer to communities. So they have become, we have conversations with banks for them to go in, and for them to have banking centres, Citizens Advice Bureau type activity, from the knit and natter, things for children, so and a lot of mental health awareness activity goes on in them as well. So some of them have kind of gone more into the business model agenda, where they're touchdown points for people who don't want offices and things like that. And then other ones have gone much more into that voluntary well-being activity. So we continue with a light support. Some have got cafes in there, so it's kind of a little bit of a commercial activity, but that money goes back into in the facilities within that library. So we continue to work with them. I think there's a tipping point for most of the hubs where they found the sweet spot and they've not expanded too much beyond what volunteers can actually cope with. But it's a light touch, but we have a lot of contact with them on a daily basis. With regards to what was the mobile service, obviously you'll all be aware that there is a statutory element to the kind of what offers we put into that delivery for nursing homes, residential homes, etc. We were forced by COVID to change that model slightly, which I think again has probably created much more innovation as to what that rural model could look like. And as I say, now it's in areas where we've got a much greater geographical spread, it's more of a click and drop kind of scenario. So it's kind of quite light touch. And then we focus on the statutory element where we're required to spend a bit more time and engage with local residents or people who are living in the nursing homes or residential care homes, etc. So we are unlikely to see a return to really large vehicles. They're not made anymore like that anyway, and they're incredibly expensive, and they're not particularly environmentally friendly. And on Lincolnshire's roads, they're not easy to move around. So what we've gone for is more of a fleet approach of much smaller vehicles, where they can be hopefully in the future electric vehicles, etc. And we're also looking at what other services that Lincolnshire County Council currently deliver to see where we can buddy up. So, for example, we've got conversations with adult social care, for public health, etc., for prescribing services. So, if the co-op or other prescription providers out there are available, are going out on a particular route to do prescription runs, can we talk to them about whether social prescribing should go out into books and audio books, etc. So the team presented to Debbie's leadership team last week. And we had a workshop there that included representation of all of the services in the County Council for ideas about how we can much more closely align and work in parallel with those other service areas.
Okay, questions, comments then, please. Seeing any?
Well,
Just in, if you want.
well, I'm just going. Well, I've always supported the library services, and I think although times have changed and many people will probably have their e-books or whatever, I do think, I mean, in Woodhall we've got the library on the main street, and it's not big enough really, because it's always full of older people, or in school holidays it'll be children. Likewise, I have to say Rugby's sometimes not as busy because obviously it's on the outskirts of Rugby. So for older people, it is difficult sometimes to get there. But yeah, I do think it's a service that is still well used by the public, even though, we've all had on today, haven't we? But, I think the library service does offer that service to people who are still, love reading books, but they do offer the other things as well to them. And like you're saying, friendship as well, I think, for older people. So I think, I really support the library service.
I suppose in general terms, and obviously things have moved on. We've had COVID, more and more use of the internet, more and more people use it. So I suppose, in terms of how, what might change in the future, I suppose the hard question is, well, do we need any books delivering in vans anymore? And I'm not saying, but obviously there'll be a conversation with providers and ourselves, but, why, question, I mean, they could still come, I still have some fairly large vans, not huge ones, come to my villages, and I'm thinking, well, are they still being used as they were, or is it really necessary? I'm not advocating that, I'm just devil's advocate, if you like.
Yes and no. How libraries are used, the buildings, that space is changing. They are being used as social spaces, as meeting spaces, particularly in villages that if you don't want to go to a pub to meet people, if you want to sit and have a natter, if you want to get out of the house, if you're running a business from home and you want to meet people but you don't want to take them to your home, then they're meeting in libraries. So but people are still borrowing books, as we've seen that the number of visits may be dropping, but how many books people are borrowing has continued to be very strong. So books are still needed. They're not needed as much as they used to be, because we do have these devices. The books that people are taking out has changed. Why people are taking books out has changed, and how these spaces are being used has changed. It's not just book borrowing, it's a social space. So following COVID, a lot of people lost their social confidence. because we were locked in our houses for a few weeks, and it's been particularly prevalent amongst children, getting people back into social spaces is really important. And this is one of those, and our libraries and our core libraries and our hubs are critical to that, to getting people back into social spaces, which helps with their mental health.
I think the question you raise is one we're going to have to deal with face on as the years do progress, because whilst at the moment physical book loans are nearly double what digital loans are, and that has during COVID digital did get higher and higher because necessity. Actually, it's rebalanced now, and I do see a time when one will outweigh the other again, but maybe not quite for a little while. So physical books, there's still a requirement for them. As I say, it's nearly double. How we get books, physical books to people is perhaps something the council, as I say, needs to work much smarter about and combine with other services. And I'm not advocating an Amazon style delivery, but there's an awful lot of vehicles already on the road that are going into communities and delivering things. And I think we could get smarter about how we do that and join forces with them, as opposed to having a bespoke service ourselves, not interfering with the statutory element. Obviously, that's still a requirement. But the other ones, our reach could be much broader and much quicker and much more fleet, because if you've got vans that are going out there almost on a daily basis, you'll get a turnover of books much quicker for people, as opposed to them having to wait a week or a fortnight to get their next book available. So it is something we are going to have to consider going forward.
So the home for the housebound you still do that, do
We there is still.
So if you're housebound, how do you want a library book? How do you get it? What are your options?
So that's when we can do the click and collect, or we can do the direct delivery, or the hubs are playing a central role in that as well. So there's lots of different.
And in terms of the mobile vans, is the usage, the take-up declining or stabilising, or what?
It's static at the moment. It's certainly not growing.
Compared to 8 years ago, is it?
Compared to 8 years ago, I think the model is so very, very different now, because obviously we've got the full coverage, which
I'm saying, but in terms of the books taken out of vans by people walking down.
I haven't got that. I haven't got that statistic. I would need to find that. I wouldn't want to miss it, because it's not the same model, so it's not kind of quite comparison.
What I'm trying to say is, I don't know the answer, but talking to ourselves or a potential provider, obviously that's a conversation as to is having vans driving about the place. Still, I know we do better vans, but do we need the vans at all? I don't know. I mean, could you just send somebody the book rather than have a van travelling around?
Yeah, we have looked at that model of via post, etc. And at the moment it's cost prohibitive, even in comparison. I haven't got the direct comparison numbers, but I can get those to you from, for example, what was 8 years ago and what is now. And hence the reason I think about looking at other ways of getting books to people and using other people's services in a more creative way, where you can combine,
and the criteria still exists. If the usage and a certain site goes down below a certain threshold, the service will be removed. That we used to do that, didn't we?
I'm not familiar with.
We used to say if it's not being used much.
Oh, for the mobile stuff.
The mobile.
Yes, sorry. Yes. That is still
Have any sites been withdrawn?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay, and I think that's to me that's a very interesting area where how you make sure that people can get the books and support people. But there are, these days there are different models you could use. Councillor Woolley.
Thank you, Lisa. And it's an extension of what Nicole's just been talking about getting books to people. NHS Responders was set up during COVID, and it's a national-wide voluntary scheme. So it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. The opportunity exists for volunteers to offer their services within a mileage radius of where you live. And that covers at the moment anything from shopping to prescription collection and all other manner of things for people who might be housebound. And I think we could probably have a conversation on the back of that. It's something that's already there, so we could make good use of it. And it actually fits into, as Councillor Corey said, the mental health side and well-being of individuals. It does support our residents. So I would suggest that we probably do have that conversation with our local NHS colleagues and see how we can progress it.
Okay, any further comments? Oh, Councillor McLaren?
Yeah, just pick on the Amazon point. I mean, I don't know quite how the rural service works, whether it's like a location or whether you can just ring up and book it for anywhere. But I would imagine that some of the books are actually cheaper to buy and be delivered than what it would be for actually sending some out. Is that being looked at?
Yeah, we used to have a massive bookstore and we spent ages, faffing around with books basically, but now all the books are out and they're just there. And so we don't have no need for a bookstore. They're all out and they are moved around, but that's we have expanded on that. But that has worked very well, hasn't it?
It has, yes. And as the leader quite rightly says, we don't have a huge bookstore anymore, or we were determined that all of our books needed to be out there in circulation. If a bespoke or specialist book is requested, then indeed, yes, on occasion it has been more economically viable for us to purchase and get that individually sent. But a whole scale purchase and delivery style model is one that at the moment is cost prohibitive. It's not a model that we're looking to go down.
So the more unusual books, there'll be one somewhere. So it might be that, somewhere Market Racing somebody Market Racing wants to book it, it might be book actually might be in the deep end or whatever. So it'll just be moved.
Yeah, I mean,
rather than having a slate. But you can, yeah, you're right. And then there's a balance between, because the truth is that a lot of the books we have aren't asked for very often. And the most popular ones are the more common ones. So there is a balance actually, because if you want people to use the library, they probably come and use books, take out books which are fairly common around. But we also need to make sure we have books there if somebody needs them.
I think I was sort of getting at it. Say there's one person in North Somercotes, the book's at Lincoln, but it's £3 to have it bought and delivered by Amazon. That'd be cheaper than getting the van driving out there.
Well, I think
just see where it comes from.
On a one individual level, yes, I can see that's what it would look like. But those vans are not just delivering one book to North Somercotes. Those vans will be doing 16, 17, 18 different stops on a particular route. So, it would be the circumstances that the leader has just described where it's a unique or specific one where we would do it. I don't think the council would advocate, as just kind of buying from Amazon and having them deliver our library service for it. That would be a headline that we would give.
Okay, any further comments? I think the view is that, just to obviously start procedure now, and obviously that will come back to for us to look at, see what options provide us, hoping they'll come up with some innovation as well in the light of what they know from elsewhere, and then we'll have a decision on the sort of model, and then a decision won't be till later next year, will it, with the preferred provider. Okay, so the recommendations there on page 39, 1, 2 and 3, we approve the procurement, approve the broad retention of the broad delivery model, and then delegates the portfolio holder. Is that agreed? All those in favour of that, please show. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay then, right, we retreat back to item number 5, which is future of the IT service delivery model. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. It goes without saying that IT underpins almost everything we do in the authority, and the IT service is required by everybody in the organisation, and our ability to deliver services is fundamentally in response to how good the IT service is. And it's no surprise to colleagues that at times over the last few years, it's fallen below where it should. I have to say I'll pay credit to David for the efforts that he's put in as interim CIO that's really turned that service around. And we have seen substantial changes, it's fair to say, but I think we're in a much better place than we were. Now, what that means is, as we go into the renewal of the Serco contract, we're in a position to do things differently. And I think the remodel report suggestions you have in front of you around a core operational IT service, a dedicated contract for IT security, and then a separate contract for project support, I think it's probably a better way to describe it as any, puts us in a really interesting place, because rather than relying on one sole supplier, we can go out to slightly smaller companies who are more focused in those particular niches. That opens up the market. And I think with the rearranged service that we have now, we're in a better place to manage that. But I don't know whether Andrew's got sideswipe that straight across to the rest of the
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Leader. So I'll do a short introduction. So the Council IT delivery contract, Serco, expires in March 2026. In May 2022, a sourcing approach was agreed, but procurement was paused in late 2022 to allow us to address a number of risks. The key risks amongst them really were a lack of IT maturity that Richard, Councillor Davis has already mentioned, but that was coupled with a plan, the original plan, to bring all of the IT services in-house. As a result of that assessment, and to significantly reduce the risk, it's proposed that no significant services are moved in-house, and instead a single operational service provider will deliver day-to-day services for the council. The delivery will change specialists. The project specialist, as Councillor Davis mentioned, will deliver a flexible approach to change projects. So we would have a core team that's dedicated to Lincolnshire IT projects, and then the ability to flex that team upwards as our needs change over the contract period. In addition to that, we'd also have a specialist security provider that would monitor our systems 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, take care of standard security events and alert us to events that needed a different type of response. That, coupled with improvements in IT, significantly reduces the risk of the original proposal. However, this is still a significant undertaking to potentially transfer our services to a new partner or a new set of partners. In order to prepare us for that, we've made some fairly significant changes to the senior IT team that's really bolstered our capability and the maturity of the team. Just to give you an idea of that, I'm an interim, as Councillor Davis has mentioned. My permanent replacement will begin on the 7th of May. And I think in that particular role, as is the case with a few other roles I'm about to describe, we have gone and selected some of the very best people available in the market. I'm very pleased. I know others are exceptionally pleased with the quality and calibre of the candidates that we've attracted and now joining us. So this week, Head of Cybersecurity started. That's the very first Head of Cybersecurity the Council's had, and that reflects the growing importance of cybersecurity, of course. Head of IT Architecture and Strategy has started this week, and last week the Head of IT Project Delivery started. So we have a team that are going to not only shape the future of IT and develop on the work that has been done previously, but will also be able to help us to select the very best partners to deliver for residents in Lincolnshire into the future. It's essential that we keep this work on track. So it's very easy to think this is 2 years out, but there's a year of transition to be done. there's a fairly significant procurement exercise to go through. And so far with strong help from Phil Johnson, we have kept the programme on track, and the new starters, the new joiners, will be progressing that very, very soon into their tenure. Once they've had a couple of days induction, they'll be working on the re-procurement. So the proposed model will give LCC access to a broader set of partners and providers than we potentially would have had if we'd have gone for a single source model. And I think importantly, that means that we'll be able to select from partners where LCC's business will really mean a lot to them. And I think right sizing the relationships really quite important. We need partners that need this income from LCC and really want to help us to deliver. So as I've said, the proposal significantly reduces the risk. The work that we've done to bolster the team further reduces that risk. And the proposal is that we should move forward with a 3-partner model, one for operational IT services on a day-to-day basis, one for change, and one for security. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
David, Councillor Stokes, so you scrutiny consider this?
Yes, thank you, Leader. So on the 12th of March, the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board considered the report, and we expressed our support for the 3 recommendations presented in this report. During our deliberation, several questions were raised and addressed. Firstly, with regards to long-term sustainability, it was emphasised that the proposed model with a potential contract duration of up to 11 years aims to establish long-lasting partnerships with providers capable of innovation and adaptability. Officers described this as the intention to have right-sized relationships and to ensure meaningful engagements that facilitate continuous improvement in frontline services, bringing together the expertise of multiple providers. Secondly, in addressing concerns about resilience and security, we were pleased to hear that significant investments have been made to counter the ever-evolving threats to our IT systems, including state-sponsored and criminal activities. These include the appointment of a dedicated head of cyber security, as mentioned, and the implementation of state-of-the-art tools to bolster our defences. Furthermore, updates to legacy systems have enhanced their resilience against emergent threats. And lastly, we were given assurances that contingency plan B had been carefully considered to mitigate risks associated with potential disruptions. And this involves ongoing market engagement to ensure diverse responses from suppliers, rigorous due diligence on prospective partners, and ensuring a balanced procurement portfolio that aligns with the council service needs. So in summary, the board was confident that the proposed future IT service delivery model prioritises long-term sustainability, resilience and flexibility to adapt to evolving challenges, while safeguarding the continual and quality of our IT services. I therefore endorse, on behalf of the board, the recommendations as put.
Thank you very much. As we said, we have invested quite substantially in certainly the cyber security because it's a constant evolving threat. I think Leicester, I don't know whether Leicester City have got themselves back on track yet. They were at least a week without, because they were successfully hacked. I think that's something. I think having a specific role there for cybersecurity is very important. I mean, I very much support, chopping it up, if you like, or having different. So the risk with that is, of course, that providers don't talk to each other. So they just want to sort of how we might just protect ourselves against that risk. Although currently Serco, they have different suppliers as well. So I think that problem still exists. But obviously it's a greater risk with different suppliers blaming each other for things that might go wrong.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So I think in the area of cyber security, I think that's a fairly low risk. So effectively you have one organisation monitoring the activity of the systems and alerting. So that we think that's a fairly low risk. In a model where you have one organisation making change that another organisation then needs to operate, there is definitely a risk that those partners don't work well together, that can cause difficulties. We do have that from time to time in the current arrangement. In the main, it's handled pretty well. but it does crop up from time to time. The way we'll mitigate that is certainly in the KPIs that we develop and in terms of the types of relationships that we'll develop with each of the partners, will ensure that there is a level of compatibility, but most importantly, there are aligned incentives. And I think in where I've experienced this in previous organisations, there's been a misalignment of incentives that's meant that the partnerships haven't been successful. But in the main, where the incentives are aligned for change and operations, then actually it's a very successful model. And actually, just to give an example, we referenced with HM Treasury during last year, they have a model where they have 7 or 8 change providers and an operational provider. And again, the main feature that they identified as making that help to make that successful was alignment of incentives. And certainly that echoed with my experience and that of others that we've spoken to.
Can I just come in on that?
Yes,
You raised a really valid point. I think the counterpoint slightly is sometimes when you're dealing with very large organisations, you think you're buying from one organisation, but actually when you interface with them, you end up feeling like a series of smaller companies anyway, and they have their own internal rivalries and problems. So it may come under one banner. I think the key thing here will be having the kind of the command structure in place that gives you very clear accountability for each of the contracts as who the liaison is at LCC. So I think that having those large new heads in place will hopefully, if we can get those relationships right, make a real difference. Because the other thing, you see this in highways and other services, you think you're actually buying from one organisation, but the people who arrive with the screwdrivers, the spanners, or the finger to hit the on-off button. That's what MT people really do nowadays. When they actually talk to them, you're not talking to somebody with a badge you think you're talking to anyway. So I think this gives us a bit more flexibility. And the other key point I'd highlight from what David said is about those dealing with organisations that want the business, that really need it and it values them. Because I think then we can develop quite a strategic relationship, hopefully by people who are looking to maybe expand within the local government market or kind of get into it and not come up to them.
I think there's a role, just to be clear, certainly because it could be a long contract, that we're clear about what our direction of travel. So people who are successful are on that journey. But as with IT, things will change a lot, won't they? With technology time, coming along, there will be changes. But I think that if they're clear what our sense of direction is, that will be very helpful. Questions, comments then? Anybody else? I mean, I'm very pleased that we're successful recruiting campaign, which is so there's always a risk that, finding the right people, but it seems to be that certainly for County Council, which I think is actually a common theme at the moment, we do seem very, I'll say fortunate, we're in a good place where we seem to be able to recruit people who probably see us as a sort of a safe, but sort of fairly ambitious place to be.
And I'd probably go further, Leah, in saying that the people we recruit actually have, really are ambitious as well, and certainly want to drive out value for the bottom line for the council and aren't just focused on the actual technology, which was one of the core attractions for them.
Thank you. Any further comments? No, presumably this is your last meeting with us, is it, David?
It is, Leader.
So, well, can I say thank you very much? I think you've been a very successful appointment and you've certainly moved us on from a difficult place to a place where I think we have a lot more confidence about the future and about this re-procurement. So, good luck. I gather you're going to take things a bit easier, but just
for a couple of months.
Just for a couple of months. But thank you very much for your for what you've done for us. It's been very.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
So the recommendations then are, I just find them somewhere, I've lost them.
Page 17.
Page 17 there. So basically they are 17 and 18, and as described, changes in the model, also the procurement of services and usual delegation to the director in consultation with the portfolio holder. So all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, David. Okay, we move then to high tech to very low tech, salt. Salt procurement.
Thank you. Despite my best efforts, we don't appear to replace Darren and his team with ChatGPT. We're still working on that Joking aside, the provision of salt and keeping the roads clear is that classic service that we don't really want to talk about it until the phones are ringing and we're kind of 2 feet deep in snow. The reality is it has undergone quite a lot of innovation. We're now using a new material. There's a lot in the report about it, but we've gone to a treated grit salt mix rather than a pre-wet. That saved a substantial amounts of money. When we're talking about £1 million a year, I think we spend on salt. So it's a huge undertaking. I think one thing I would say is by adopting the ESPO framework, I think it enables us to buy it much more kind of convincingly. The reality is, I think there's only 3 or is it 4 providers in the country that we can get the material from, so it's limited. But what we can do by buying now and having invested quite successfully, I think, over the years in our saltborne storage, it's quite a lot cheaper to buy it in the summer than it is in the winter, which kind of makes sense on a supply-demand model. So I wholly endorse this, and hopefully with some changes to the equipment, there are things we can do with the network as well, because I know all colleagues across the county will have areas they'd like gritted and areas they don't need gritting. So I think there is an opportunity, I think, moving forward to look at the route a little bit as well. But I'll hand over to Saltman.
He's looking forward to his nice summer break. It's smiling.
Get some sleep.
If it was October, I'd have a different.
Councillor Davis. So the council's current contract for the gritting salt used by the highway service will expire on the 30th of April 2024, and there are no further options to extend the current arrangement. So the recommended option is to re-procure the contract utilising the ESPO de-icing salt and associated product services framework for a contract term of 4 years. The procurement will ensure that council benefits from improved buying power and will achieve a lower price per tonne than if the council conducted our own further competition. The alternatives considered and not recommended today are: do not purchase road gritting salt in its entirety. Obviously, that would cause us issues under the duties under the Highways Act. We've got an option to carry out bespoke procurement ourselves as Lincolnshire County Council, but again, our bulk buying power compared with all of the other authorities grouping together doesn't give us that opportunity. And the third alternative, again not recommended, is to carry out the procurement via an existing contractual arrangement. So we could deliver it something like through the term service contract. All of the main UK salt mines are included on the ESPO lot. They are at Winsford, Cheshire. That's our incumbent provider. There's one in North Yorkshire, and there's also one in Northern Ireland. They're Compass Minerals, ICL UK, and Salt Sands. The type of salt procured, as outlined by Councillor Davis, is known as treated salt, which is a dry brown salt mixed with molasses, as recommended by the Winter Research Group. This product has allowed the council to reduce the amount of salt spread on the network, and it ultimately sticks to the carriageway so that we can reduce our spread rates from a standard 10, 15, 20 grams down to a 7, 12 and 17. The cost of salt procurement is expected to increase with inflation, linked to pay and fuel costs for transportation, so we're likely to see some sort of jump in this re-procurement. The cost is expected to be in the region of 5%. We're pleased to know that the Highway Service has sort of forecast that in our medium-term financial plan, so we've covered that off already. Worth noting and adding, as outlined by Councillor Davis, that the council moved over to a treated salt from a pre-wet system in 2018-19. The old system used a marine salt, which was imported from outside of the UK. Whilst the technological solution there was probably better, there was a brine spray bar in front of the salt going down. It didn't offer the value for money that this solution does, so that the business case still stacks up with this decision to re-procure. At this moment in time, the price per tonne of that marine salt is £14 per tonne more expensive. And then you've got the addition of all the equipment maintenance, the equipment purchasing that you have to do in place. So there are a number of other benefits as well as just re-procuring the salt that we've got. So a benefit of the procurement going out in its current arrangement with ESPO is the summer reduced buying power. The summer reduced rate of £4 per tonne. So if we can get salt barns filling them during the summer months instead of restocking when that salt is at its highest demand, we want to be taking advantage of that. So we're looking always at our strategic depot plans going forward, just trying to maximise space on our network. A benefit again of the decision to go to a treated salt is that there's no need to replace the old pre-wet system. So they're brine making facilities in all of our depots that needed sort of constant care and maintenance. That saving is typically about 150k per annum. And also when we procure our gritters now, we now don't need to add the additional brine tanks and spray bars, which is typically 15,000 per vehicle. So to summarise, the decision to move away from a pre-wet system typically saves somewhere in the region of £450,000 per annum. And this re-procurement of the salt allows us to carry on with that route. That concludes the update. Any questions? And myself and Darrell here.
Fully support sticking with the current model, but you're ruling out, I mean, I presume you could import salt from the salt we need under this new model. That could come from anywhere. So are we restricting ourselves just to the UK?
No, it's a UK innovation. So this is we can't import it from abroad at the moment. So
Right.
They don't produce it abroad. It's a purely a UK innovation initially by Compass Minerals, but followed by the other in the other two mines.
Okay.
We're taking advantage of that.
In terms of resilient, obviously they fill all the salt barns up. And I still remember probably 10 years ago when the leader and the chief executive were daily analysing how often the grit lorries went down, how much they're putting on, so we were getting very low. So in terms of, because is it right that we don't need to fill all the salt barns, we're still on a safe bad. Yeah, I'm just worried that, and then you get to the stage where salt's rationed by government, and we get to a situation where we get in touch with this only happens in extreme circumstances. But I'm just questioning in terms of resilience. I don't want the leader and the chief executive to be spending all their time worrying about how much salt they've got in the barn and wondering where they can get it from. Was it 10 years? It was. I don't think it was an exciting time, Joe.
Yeah, it's something I'm still probably getting counselling for. But it was an exciting time. We were in a particularly good position at that time. Had quite a lot of salt in, so we never did run out of salt in that time, not like some other authorities. So we were pretty good. Well, just to reassure you on that, we have now a new way of heating our salt. We have a heat contractor that usually does, he works at Immingham Docks doing stocks from shipping, and he comes in our special equipment. We can actually get now 5,000 more tons into our barn by stocking it in a proper manner, which we use over the summer. And that means that we can now stock around 29 to 30,000 tons in our barns. To give you an idea of the usage of 2010, we used around 38,000 tons in that winter. So nearly, with the amount of salt that we have in, we're not far from covering that worst case scenario, and that was a worst case scenario. Our normal usage on an average year is 20,000 tons, so we've got more than enough in for a full winter. And to just give you an idea, this season has been a little bit of a mild one. We've only used 14,000 tons, so and that's average. That 14 to 20,000 ton usage is average. So it's only those exceptional years, and you can see that usage building up. We can order as well to bring.
So we're pretty. You can't plan for the regular worst case scenario, but we are in a pretty strong place.
We can't plan for the exception, but we are there for the norm. The exception, we can monitor and cover and make adjustments as things go on. So if we are getting some heavy usage in early in the year, we can bring salt in early over the winter. Obviously, though, it is a more expensive rate. So just to give you an idea of that, most of our barns stay full. With salt in over the season. There's two barns that are small, and these are our Sturton barns and our old depot barns, which are small, and there we have to regularly restock. So
and that's also reviewing
that's something that we need to review. That's something that's
which is a factor in conservation, isn't it?
I think that's the bit that I think we're in a relatively good place. There is always a risk that if we get an extreme winter, what we're trying to do with the depots is part of that invest to save case, because of that summer dropping at that £4 per tonne that we can take advantage of in the summer. These decisions we've got some of these barns that are at end of life anyway, so let's make that decision to upsize. And we think the payback period is pretty short when it's dealing with these sort of quantities and tonnage. And we think it's the right thing to do. So yes, we're working on that, and That's probably a separate executive discussion, but purchasing land potentially and looking at alternative sites around Lincolnshire.
It's in our financial models to look at the spread. Okay, excuse the pun. Any further questions? Very good. So recommendation. Oh, right.
It's not a question, it's a comment. Just saying that every day's a school day when you're a councillor. And I was fascinated that you can actually get more salt in there if you use technology to pile it in differently.
Yeah, bigger shovel.
Is it just?
It's actually, it's got something that pushes the salt up so we can get it a bit higher. Take this to the roof space, use it. It's actually, if when he does it, it's worth the going and having a look. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah,
If you want to,
love to.
more than happy to arrange that. Yes, it's really interesting.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I can also run through some of the science, and instead of boring you with my nerdy science, salty science and weather things,
Bring it on.
I can show you that.
Yeah.
Okay, right then. So there's recommendations there on page 49, so that we approve VRSPO procuring the contract and then delegates the details to Hampshire Place in consultation with portfolio holder. All those in favour? That's agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jonathan, Darren. Have a nice break.
I'm sure the windstorm along at Edinburgh.
Well, snow in April is not, I know,
Chicken, yeah.
spoil your,
Yeah. It's not just winter. I mean, obviously we've dealt with flooding. If it's not brutally cold temperatures, you get the other end of the spectrum where you get really high temperatures.
well, it could be spreading sand. Is that your,
We have done that, yeah, we have to do that in 2013.
35 degrees?
Sounds according
So
to
Darrell reads, it's never good news.
When Castle Davis rings and it's snowing in Grantham, it's never good news.
Well, Grantham is, you can't get out of Grantham without going up a hill, that's.
It's true, yeah.
So, okay, well, thank you very much, that's great, thank you, gentlemen. With that, I think that concludes the meeting. Thank you for your attendance.